When a woman speaks about a man she'll never forget, she rarely talks first about his hands or his moves. She talks about how he made her feel. She talks about how he looked at her, how he paused long enough to see her, how he touched her not just with his fingers, but with his attention. There is a way a man enters a room, a space, a woman's life with intention, with reverence, with awareness. And that energy lingers long after the moment has passed. Emotional presence is not a tactic, it's a frequency, and only those tuned into it can create experiences that live forever in memory. The truth that many won't say out loud is that most men touch a woman's body without ever reaching her soul. They go through the motions, focus on the outcome, rush through the journey just to arrive at a destination. But what makes a woman stop and replay a moment over and over in her head isn't just about what was done to her. It's about what was unlocked within her. To be unforgettable, you have to slow down. You have to be still enough to notice the shift in her breath when she feels desired. You have to listen to the silence between her words, because that's where the real truths are whispered. You have to look at her like her body is art and her heart is sacred. You have to want to understand her. A man who is emotionally present understands that intimacy is not just physical, it's spiritual, psychological, and deeply human. He knows that a woman will only let go when she feels safe. And safety isn't created by muscles or money. Safety is created by presence. It's built in the way you pay attention to her when she speaks. It's born in the way you don't rush her. It lives in the tone of your voice, in the warmth of your eyes, in the stillness of your hand. She must know, not just with her mind, but with her body, that you are with her, right here. Not distracted, not checking out, not performing, with her, for her, seeing her, not the fantasy of her, but her, in her raw, unfiltered humanness. There is a moment, quiet but unmistakable, when a woman realizes a man is truly present. It's in the way he breathes with her, in sync instead of trying to control the rhythm. It's in the way he allows her to be vulnerable without trying to fix her. In the way he honors her boundaries, not as a limitation, but as an invitation to deepen trust. A present man does not push, he invites. He does not pressure, he provides space. He's not trying to get somewhere. He's savoring every part of where he is. And in that space, a woman blooms. She begins to let herself go, not because he demanded it, but because his energy told her she could. You must understand something that most never learn. For a woman, deep desire doesn't grow from performance. It grows from presence. It grows from patience. It grows from knowing that she is not a checklist, not a goal, not a conquest. She is a universe, and you cannot map a universe with a stopwatch or a manual. You explore it with wonder. You discover it with gratitude. You feel it with your soul. And when she senses that you are willing to learn her, not rush her, not mold her into a version of your fantasies, but simply hold space for her to be fully herself, something inside her opens. Something that only opens for men who know how to be emotionally awake. Present is not just about being in the same room, it's about the quality of your attention. When you kiss her, are you tasting her lips or thinking about the next move? When you touch her, are your hands speaking to her or just grabbing what you think she wants? When you look into her eyes, are you truly seeing her or just watching to see if she's satisfied? Women feel the difference, instantly, unforgettably. A man who is present doesn't need to try hard. His touch is enough. His stillness speaks volumes. His silence comforts more than some men's words. He knows that when a woman feels emotionally held, her body will respond in ways no technique can teach. Emotional connection is a slow burn. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rush. It simmers. It deepens. It builds. And it lasts. It is created when you care enough to ask what she likes, not just in bed, but in life. It is sustained when you listen to her body as much as you listen to her words. When you notice that her breath changes, when you trace her skin slowly, when you remember the way she likes to be touched, not because you read it in a book, but because you took the time to observe her, to understand her. Women open up when they feel seen. And no, not seen like an object, seen like a story, a soul, a journey. When your eyes tell her she doesn't have to perform, she doesn't have to impress, she can just be naked in body and spirit, that is when you begin to matter. There is a difference between touching a woman and awakening her. The former can be done with skill, the latter requires presence. There's a difference between undressing her and unraveling her. One is about action, the other is about energy. A man who can sit with her energy, match her breath, align with her rhythm, that man will never be forgotten. Because he wasn't just touching her skin, he was holding her spirit. And that is something no woman can unfeel. You must realize that no matter how beautiful, powerful, or confident a woman appears on the outside, there is a part of her that wants to be chosen, not for what she gives, but for who she is. And when you approach her with presence, you validate that part of her. You say to her, I see you, I honor you, I'm not here to take from you, I'm here to experience you. That is rare, that is sacred, that is unforgettable. Many men want to be remembered for how long they lasted or how good they think they were. But time is not what she remembers. She remembers how safe she felt. She remembers how deeply she could breathe. She remembers how unashamed she was in your presence, how natural her pleasure felt, how unforced, how real, how raw. She remembers the softness in your eyes when she opened hers, the stillness of your body when hers trembled. She remembers that you weren't performing, you were present. And that presence whispered to her something that no loud gesture ever could. You cared. True presence means you don't see her pleasure as your accomplishment, but as your shared experience. It means you don't take her vulnerability lightly. You don't see her nakedness as entitlement. You recognize that every part of her you touch is sacred space. That every moan, every movement, every breath is a language, and you must learn it like poetry, not math. You don't rush poetry. You don't dissect it. You feel it. You let it move you. Emotional connection requires emotional maturity. You must be willing to sit with your own discomfort, your own insecurity, your own impatience. You must train yourself to listen more than you speak, to feel more than you do. You must cultivate a stillness that speaks to her nervous system, telling it, you are safe here. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe, her body responds with openness, her heart responds with trust, and her memory holds on to the experience, not because of fireworks, but because of the depth. A man who can master emotional presence doesn't just have one-night connections. He creates imprints. He creates memories that surface in the quiet of the night years later, not because he was perfect, but because he was real, because he was there fully, completely, authentically. He wasn't trying to win. He wasn't trying to prove. He was simply witnessing her, holding her, being with her. And that kind of energy cannot be taught. It must be chosen. You cannot fake presence. You can't pretend to be tuned in when your mind is wandering. Women are intuitive. They know, they feel. If your energy is disconnected, if you're not truly there, they will feel it. And they may go along with the act, but they won't remember you. They won't crave you. They won't miss you. Presence is not performance, it's devotion. It's awareness. It's the willingness to let go of control and surrender to connection. It's the way you speak her name when she's vulnerable, the way you hold her tighter when she's softening, the way you slow down when she seems unsure, the way you ask, not assume, the way you listen not just to reply, but to understand, the way your silence wraps around her like safety. That is what you remember. That is what will make her body respond even before you touch her. That is what will echo in her memory long after your names have faded from each other's phone. You see, unforgettable intimacy isn't about what you do. It's about what you awaken. It's not about friction. It's about fusion, not just bodies, but energy, intention, trust. And when a woman experiences a man who knows how to make her feel emotionally naked before she's physically undressed, she never forgets that feeling. Because it's not common, it's not easy, it's not loud, but it's real. So if you want to be remembered, forget the ego, forget the tricks, forget the checklist. Show up fully, patiently, honestly, with your breath, with your presence, with your attention. Make her feel like the world has stopped just to witness her. And when she feels that, she will surrender, not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but out of deep, soulful desire. That is how you become unforgettable. That is how you touch a woman in a way she never forgets. That is how emotional presence changes everything. Confidence is not about walking into a room and expecting every woman to want you. It's about walking into her world with the assurance that you don't need to prove anything to be worthy. Real confidence isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention or validation. It doesn't overcompensate with performance. Instead, it's quiet, calm, and deeply rooted in a man's understanding of himself. When a man knows who he is, he doesn't enter a woman's space with ego. He enters with presence. And that presence creates room for something far more powerful than just attraction. It creates trust. That's where unforgettable intimacy begins, with a foundation of trust, laid gently but firmly by a man who is secure in himself. The most unforgettable men in a woman's life are not necessarily the ones with the best bodies or the flashiest moves. They are the men who made her feel something more than skin deep. They are the ones who knew how to look at her not just with desire, but with depth. A man who radiates true confidence knows that he doesn't need to pretend to be perfect. He allows himself to be real. And that realness creates a bridge between him and her that performance never could. Women don't remember the lines you rehearsed or the things you forced. They remember the energy. They remember the authenticity. They remember that when they were with you, they could breathe deeper, laugh louder, feel freer, and surrender more fully. Communication is often mistaken as just words. But the most powerful communication happens before you speak. It's in the way you approach her, the way your energy signals whether she can trust you, the way your eyes hold hers, not possessively, but curiously. A man who communicates well isn't just articulate, he's emotionally aware. He knows how to ask the questions most men are too insecure to ask. What do you like? What makes you feel good? What are you comfortable with? Do you feel safe? These questions don't make a man weak. They make him unforgettable because they tell her that she matters, that her voice matters, that her pleasure is not an afterthought, but an invitation, that he wants to share, not just take. Confidence becomes magnetic when it is combined with care. A man who leads with ego is forgettable, but a man who leads with care becomes impossible to replace. Care is shown in the smallest details. The way he listens when she speaks, the way he adjusts his rhythm to match her breath, the way he notices when she's retreating emotionally and brings her back with his voice. Care is in the follow-up, in the way he checks in afterward, not just to affirm his performance, but to affirm her experience. Care is when a man stops focusing on being good in bed and starts focusing on being good to her, in bed and beyond. Confidence doesn't need to dominate, it harmonizes. It adapts without losing itself. A man who knows himself can read a room. He can feel the energy shift. He can tell when she's excited and when she's unsure. And instead of pushing past her boundaries, he pauses. He leans into communication. He says with his presence, I see you, I hear you, I value what you feel. That's a kind of energy that makes a woman relax into herself. That's what allows her to let go of the walls she's built. That's what makes her body say yes, not out of pressure, but out of pleasure, out of choice, out of desire. Because a man like that doesn't take anything, he creates space for it to be given. And that space is sacred. It is not filled with flashy moves or noise. It's filled with awareness, with responsiveness, with the kind of slow attentiveness that lets her know this isn't about performance, it's about partnership. She's not just a participant in his fantasy, she's a collaborator in an experience they are both creating. That is what confidence, communication, and care do. They shift the dynamic from transactional to transformation, from fleeting to unforgettable. Confidence says, I know what I bring, but I'm open to discovering what you love. Communication says, tell me your truth, I'm listening. Care says, your comfort is my priority. And when all three work together, something powerful happens. A woman no longer feels like she's being handled. She feels like she's being held. Her guard drops, her breath deepens, her pleasure becomes uninhibited because she knows she's in the hands of a man who's not afraid of her depth. There is something so irresistible about a man who is willing to learn, who doesn't think he already knows everything, who doesn't measure his masculinity by how dominant he can be, but by how present he can stay. A man who asks, who listens, who adjusts. That man becomes memorable not just for what he did, but for how he made her feel seen, naked in all the ways that matter, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. Some men think that being unforgettable in bed means being wild, aggressive, over the top. But most women will tell you it's not about force. It's about flow. It's not about intensity. It's about intimacy. It's not about how hard you go. It's about how deep you connect. And that depth can only be reached when you approach her not as an object of desire, but as a person worthy of devotion. Your confidence gives her the assurance that you can handle her. Your communication gives her the voice to express herself. Your care gives her the freedom to be fully in her body without fear, without shame. You want to be unforgettable? Show her that you understand her, not just her body. Understand what makes her clothes off. Understand what makes her melt. Understand that her pleasure is not linear, that her desire comes in waves, that some days she'll want to be held like glass and other days like fire. A man who pays attention to these shifts, who doesn't take them personally but sees them as clues, that man becomes someone she craves. Because with him, she's not a script. She's not a role. She's a dynamic, complex, ever-evolving woman. And she's allowed to be all of that because he knows how to hold space for it. And holding space is an act of emotional courage. It requires that you put your ego aside and tune in, that you care enough to be responsive, that you're willing to be flexible, that you can feel when her yes is full-bodied and when it's hesitant, and that when it is hesitant, you stop, you listen, you check in. That pause doesn't kill the mood, it deepens it. It tells her, I care more about you than my performance. And that message reaches deeper than any physical act ever could. Communication also means listening beyond words. Some of the most powerful forms of communication happen in the way her body moves, in the subtle shifts of her breath, in the tension in her shoulders or the softness in her sighs. A man who pays attention to these signs is a man who leads with care. And when you care, you start to understand the rhythm of her pleasure, not just how to give it, but how to share in it. And when that happens, intimacy becomes less about what you did to her and more about what you created together. Confidence, when it's real, gives you the power to slow down, to savor, to feel. A man who is confident doesn't need to rush to the climax. He finds satisfaction in the buildup, in the teasing, in the anticipation. He knows that her body needs time, patience, curiosity, and he delights in every moment of exploration. Because it's not just about release, it's about connection. And connection is what turns a fleeting moment into a permanent memory. Unforgettable lovers are not perfect lovers. They are present lovers. They make mistakes, they fumble, they ask, but what sets them apart is their ability to make her feel emotionally held. When a woman feels that, everything changes. Her body responds in ways even she didn't expect. Her mind relaxes, her heart opens, and in that space, her pleasure becomes limitless. Not because of what he did, but because of what he allowed her to feel. Care is not about being soft or submissive. It's about being tuned in. It's about having the emotional strength to be gentle. It's about knowing that true power doesn't need to be proven, it's felt. And a man who is powerful in that way becomes the kind of man women talk about for years, not because of how many times he made her come, but because of how completely he made her feel.